So, we are going to be talking today about the law of sines. This is lesson 9.6 brought to you by Conalonzo Inc. We are going to talk about some advanced trig topics here, including the law of sines. Our goals are to be able to find the missing sides of a triangle as well as to find the missing angles of a triangle. And we want to be able to appropriately label and understand all the different pieces that are included in a triangle. So, we're going to talk about the pieces that make up a triangle and how to solve for each different one. Now, you need to know that a triangle has different parts. This specifically is a non-right triangle. It's also called an oblique triangle. Each angle, which is labeled with a capital letter, is across from its corresponding side, labeled with small letters. So this is similar to what we were doing with the trig functions, where each side pointed to its opposite, etc. We have angle B goes to side B, we have angle A goes to side A, and we have angle C goes to side C. Notice that they all correspond. That's very, very important to know. So side C will always be across from angle C, etc. You absolutely need to know that. That's a fundamental part of using these laws that we're going to be talking about. So the first law we need to know is called the law of sines, and it is given to you right here. So go ahead and write that down. Notice that sine A is talking about the sine of angle A over side A. Sine B, so sine of angle B over side B, and sine of angle C over side C. Now, we're only working with two at a time. So you could have sine A over A is equal to sine C over C. Depends, they're all equivalent, and we're going to set up some proportions with these. So go ahead and take a second, make sure you have this law of sines written down somewhere that's easy to find. Maybe highlight it, maybe circle it or box it or note it in some way because you're going to be using it for the next several problems as well as on your assignment today. So here we have a triangle. You can see that the angles are clearly labeled, A, B, and C. I'm actually going to go through and I'm going to label the sides real quick. So this is side B, this is side C, and this is side A. That way I kind of know where they are. Notice I put each one across from its corresponding angle. So side A is across from angle A, side B is across from angle B, and side C is across from angle C. Now, when we see the instructions to solve the triangle, what that means is to find all of the missing pieces. So in this triangle, we do not know angle A, we do not know side B, and we do not know side C. We need to find all of those. That's what solving the triangle means. I'm going to start with angle A because that's probably the easiest. I know that all of the angles in a triangle add up to be 180. Therefore, 31 plus 112 plus angle A are going to equal up to 180. All I have to do is do some subtraction. So I'm just going to punch in my calculator. 180 minus 31 minus 112, and I get a measure of 37 degrees. So I found angle A is 37 degrees. One down, two to go. Now here's where the law of sines is going to come in to help me solve for the missing sides. So I'm going to start with side B. I know that the sine of angle B, which is 112, goes over side B, which I don't know. I do know that that's equal to the sine of another angle over another side. I don't want to use C because I also don't know C. So I'm going to go with A. Sine of angle A, which is 37 degrees, over side A, which I know, which is 5. Now, this is very similar to what we were doing with the sine, cosine, tangent proportions where we were cross multiplying. It's the same idea. So I'm going to cross multiply. I'm going to multiply sine of 112 times 5. I'm going to write this out so that you can see how I'm going to put it in my calculator. That's 112, by the way. I know it's not very clear. And then I'm also going to cross multiply, and I'm going to take sine 37 times b. Now, I have not put anything into my calculator yet, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve this equation first, then I'm going to plug it all into my calculator so I can do it all in consecutive steps. So I've got sine of 112 times 5 is equal to sine of 37 times b. Now, if I had an equation that was, let's say, 214 equals 5b, I would solve that by solving by whatever's in front or dividing by whatever's in front of the variable. I'm going to do the same thing here. Even though it's a little more cumbersome, I'm still going to divide by sine 37. Now I will be left with b equals whatever sine of 112 times 5 divided by sine of 37 is. Here's where my calculator comes in. So I'm going to start by typing in sine of 112. I'm going to close my parentheses because that's important, times 5. That gives me 4.6359, blah, 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 long decimal, okay? Now I'm gonna leave that on my calculator. I'm not gonna clear it. I'm not gonna do anything. I'm gonna hit divided by, and then I'm gonna type in sine 37, close my parentheses, and hit enter. This gives me a decimal of 7.70322, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, okay? Now, we talk about significant figures a lot, and so we want to kind of round to the same thing every time. So we're going to round sides to 2 decimals, angles to 1. So I'm going to round 7.703, et cetera. I'm going to round that to 7.70. Yes, the 0 is important. That holds the second spot and tells you that it's been rounded. So that's important here. I'm also going to label. Because my sides are in feet, I need to make sure that I'm labeling that 7.70 feet for side B. Okay, so now that I have found that, I am going to solve for my remaining piece, which is side C. That's what I don't know. I'm going to set up the same kind of proportion. So I'm going to take the sine of angle C, which is 31, over side C, which I don't know, and that's going to be equal to, now, I can use B or A, it doesn't matter. However, it does matter. I shouldn't say it doesn't matter. It does matter because you want to go back to what you've been given. So use your given information. Do not use your decimal that you found that's rounded, okay? If you use your rounded decimal, you're going to get some round off error, which is going to make your answer less precise, number one. Number two, if you made a mistake, let's say you typed in 36 instead of 37 or something silly, which happens, now you're putting in a wrong answer and your second answer is going to be even more wrong. You always want to go back to your givens. Number one, they're usually nicer numbers, but number two, you know they're correct, and so you don't run the risk of getting something wrong, okay? Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cross multiply. So I'm going to multiply sine of 31 times 5, and I'm going to multiply sine 37 times c. This is a proportion. I'm cross multiplying to solve. Now I'm going to divide by what's in front of the variable, which is sine of 37, so that it cancels on both sides. And I'm going to be left with c equals whatever sine 31. Don't forget when you're putting this in your calculator, you need to close your parentheses, times 5, 2.57, blah, 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 divided by sine 37, close my parentheses, is 4.27903, etc. Remember, I want to round to 2 decimal places, so the 9 tells me to round the 7 up. So C is going to be equal to 4.28 feet. I have now solved the triangle because I found all of my information. So this isn't necessarily too difficult. You just have to set the stuff up and then you have to cross multiply to solve. One of the things you need to be sure when you're doing this, okay, is to show us your proportion. So you need to show us what you're setting up. When we say show your work, we're asking you to show us that proportion so we know that you're getting all the stuff in the right places. If you just give us an answer of B equals 6.39, I have no idea where that came from. I don't know if you got your signs mixed up. I don't know if you put it in your calculator wrong. Without seeing what you're working with, I have no idea where you're coming from. So please make sure that on the assignments you're showing us some work so that we can give you some feedback as to whether you're getting things in the right spots or following the right process or where things might be going awry, okay? So we have solved this triangle. Let's move on to another one. We have this triangle here. Again, we're being told to solve the triangle, so we need to find all of the missing pieces. So this time we have angles A and C. We need to find angle B. We need to find, I'm going to label my sides here real quick. We need to find side A and side B. Now remember, I know that this is side A over here because angle A goes to side A, angle B goes to side B, angle C goes to side C. Now, the angle is going to be the easiest thing to solve for because I can simply take 180 minus 45 minus 55, and I will get the measure of angle B. So I'm going to put that in my calculator real quick. 180 minus 45 minus 55 is 80 degrees. So I found my angle. I know the angle B is 80 degrees. Now I'm going to use my law of sines to set up proportions to solve for sides A and B. The order does not matter. You can solve for B and then A or vice versa. I'm just going to do A because I like to go in alphabetical order. So I'm going to take sine of 45, which is angle A, over side A, which I don't know, is equal to, now I need two things that I do know. So I'm not going to use B, I'm going to use C because I know both angle C and side C. So sine of angle C is 55 over side C is 12. I'm going to cross multiply. Sine of 45 times 12 is equal to sine of 55 times A, and then I'm going to divide by sine of 55. Do you see how it's the same process every time? Set up your proportion, and then we're multiplying and dividing in the same way every single time, okay? So it's not like it ever really switches up on you. You're doing the same thing. So now here, once I've got this figured out, this is where I'm going to put it in my calculator. So I'm going to take sine of 45, close my parentheses, times 12 is 8.48 divided by sine of 55, close my parentheses, and I get 10.35861, etc. I'm writing this whole decimal so that you can, as you're doing this, you can put it in your calculator and make sure you're getting the right number, okay? Now we talked about our significant figures. I'm going to round this to 2 decimal places. The 8 tells me to round the 5 up. So I have 10.36. My unit is inches, okay? If I solve for A, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to solve for B. So angle B is 80. So sine of 80 over side B, which I don't know, is equal to, now remember, I'm going to go back to my givens and I'm going to use sine of 55, angle C, over 12, which is side C. I always want to go back to what I've been given. I don't want to use my rounded numbers. Notice I'm actually using the same kind of proportion every time. I'm just changing the first fraction. So that's kind of nice too. If you're always setting it up the same, then you know you're not going to make a mistake. I'm going to cross multiply. Sine of 80 times 12 is equal to sine of 55 times B, and then I'm going to divide by what's in front of the variable, which is sine of 55 on both sides. Once I've got that done, I'm going to do my multiplication division on my calculator. I'm going to take sine of 80. See, I'm there. It's so easy to make a mistake. I just typed in 81 on accident. That's why we don't ever want to use our rounded answers or our found answers. When I take sine 80 times 12, I get 11.8. Now I'm going to divide by sine of 55, and I get 14.42673, etc. The 6 tells me to round the 2 up to 14.43 inches. Okay, I found all my missing pieces. I have solved the triangle. I'm hoping this is starting to make sense for you. This is one of those things, though, you do really have to do the practice. Set up the proportion, plug it in your calculator correctly, okay? There's no real shortcuts on these type of problems. Make sure that you're setting everything up and typing it in correctly, using parentheses, doing all the things, okay? So again, I'm going to solve the triangle. What am I missing here? This time I'm missing angles P and angle R. And let's see, this would be side Q, this would be side P, and this would be side R. So I'm missing side P as well, okay? So that's what I have to solve for. This is a little different now. I only have one angle, so I can't just subtract from 180 to find the other angles. I'm gonna have to use my law of sines to do so. Let's start with what we know. We know Q's. We know sine of angle Q is 39 over side Q is 28. I want to go with something else that I know, and I see that I have a side for R. So I think I'm going to start with R and find angle R here, okay? So this, again, this is a little different because this time I know the side and not the angle. Same process. I'm still going to cross multiply. So I'm going to take sine of 39 times 41. And then I'm going to multiply, sine of R times 28. I'm going to divide by what's with the variable, so I'm going to divide by 28, okay? So I'm going to type into my calculator sine of 39 times 41, which is 25.802, and then I'm going to divide that by 28, which is 0.092. Now that is the sine of R, 1, 5, etc. Okay? So we need to find out what R is. Here's where we're going to use the inverse sign to find the value of angle R. Now listen very carefully because I'm going to tell you how to do this on your calculator, okay? There are some specific steps you need to follow. Do not hit clear at any point in this process, okay? So we've got the 0.9215, etc. on our calculator. Hit second, sine. So we're typing in second and sine. You should see sine -1, inverse arc sine, on your calculator. Okay? Then hit second and the negative sign at the bottom right. It says ANS above it. So what you should see on your calculator screen is this. And hit enter. And you should get a value of 67.1470, etc. Okay? Now remember, angles we're going to round to one decimal place, so the 4 tells me to keep the 1 the same. So angle R is equal to 67.1 degrees. Okay, so this one was a little more complicated and there's more calculator steps. So make sure that you understand how to do those. I'm going to solve for angle P next, and we're going to see if we can't figure that out, okay? So now I know that angle R is 67.1. Here's where I've got two angles I can subtract from 180. So I'm going to take 180 minus 39 minus 67.1, and I'm going to get the value of angle P, okay? So 180 minus 39 minus 67.1 is 73.9 degrees. So again, once we have two angles, we can always just subtract from 180 to find the third. Now I'm going to set up my proportion to find side P. This goes back to what we were doing before. So I'm going to take the sine, again, I'm going to go back to my givens. So sine of 39 over 28. Notice I'm using that same ratio that I did before. This time I'm going to go with P. So sine of angle P is 73.9 over side P, I don't know. I'm going to cross multiply again. So sine of 73.9 times 28. is equal to sine of 39 times p, and we're going to divide by sine of 39. This is what we've been doing with the other problems, okay? So now we're just going to punch it into our calculator. Sine of 73.9 times 28 divided by sine of 39 is 42.747, etc. The 7 tells me to round the 4 up to a 5. So 42.75 inches. And that seems like kind of a lot, but looking at my triangle, one side is 28 and one side is 41. So 42 actually kind of makes sense. It's a weird triangle, but it makes sense that that kind of fits with the other numbers. If I'd gotten an answer of like 1,000 or 0.23, I would know that those don't make sense, okay? So it does kind of help to evaluate your triangle and make sure that it makes sense, just kind of in the situation or in the scheme of things, okay? We're gonna try another one where we have to solve for an angle here because I want to walk through the steps of doing that again. So on this one, instead of solving the triangle, I just want to find angle C here. So I'm going to solve for angle C, okay? The rest you know how to do, I think, at this point. So I just want to focus on solving for the angle and make sure that you know how to put it into your calculator. So let's start with what we know. We know angle A is 115. And we know that side A is something. We don't know what it is. We want to take the sine of angle C over 13. Now I'm going to stop right here. And here's the reason I just wanted to solve for the angle. This doesn't work. Why? Because we have two variables, two things that we don't know, okay? So sometimes you'll get a triangle where it doesn't work. That's where what we're going to talk about in the next lesson, law of cosines, comes into play. Because if law of sines doesn't work, we have to come at this from a different way. And there's another formula that we're going to be using for this. I just wanted to point out here that if you don't have two angles on an opposite side or all three sides in an angle, you cannot use law of sines. It's not possible. So I just want to make sure that you understand when you can use it. You have to have at least one angle and its corresponding side. So if I knew either angle C or side A, I'd be able to solve this triangle. But right now, with what I know, I cannot solve this triangle. So this is one that I would have to just move on. I did not put any like these on the homework. I just wanted to show you what it looks like when you cannot solve so that you know what you're working with, okay? So hopefully you can set up a proportion. Hopefully you can solve the proportion, and I might add in using your calculator appropriately. You know the steps to punching that in, and you can use law of sines to be able to solve any triangle, almost any triangle. Please make sure that you work on your assignment, and if you have questions, ask for help. As always, this has been brought to you by Conalenzo Inc., and we are here to help you with whatever you need. So have fun using law of sines and solving those triangles.